the algorithm for the dark web changes often, meaning being able to access this one thing using .onion could possibly change to something else. And we all know that the internet is changing day by day. Like, and honestly, there's kind of nothing, I guess, us normal people can't really do about it, unless you are someone who are going to school for it or already have that job. And there can be kids who have access to this stuff and are kind of, just toying around, but there are some things on the dark web, that like the deep and dark web, that are very bad. And for example, there's this man, he was interviewed, and I had watched the interview. He was talking about the things that he saw on there. It was one of like the darker parts of the internet. Like, there's always like a dark part of like the internet that we use, like on YouTube. You're like 3 a.m. in the morning, and all of a sudden you're watching theories on like aliens in the ocean or something like that. And I mean, I've done it. I know a majority of you have done it. So it's stuff like that. But he had really bad experience with it, and he never messed with it since. But there are some people who don't have those experiences. They're just like, it kind of looks normal, and they kind of explain it how it looks exactly like regular internet. It's just different servers. It's, instead of it being .com, it would be .onion, like I had explained, or .tor. You also have to get like a VPN to help you better access Tor, and also kind of help you even better to protect your identity in where you are, because the VPN will change your IP address on your phone or your computer or whatever device you're using. It will change your IP address so you can't be tracked. Even though there's people who actually volunteer to help keep your identity safe, and there's like thousands, probably millions of people who are actually active on that web, on the dark and deep web, as we speak right now. And there's this, I don't know if this is a good example, but like every 4 seconds a baby is born. I think just a little bit slower than that, so many people are accessing the deep web. And as I had mentioned in the beginning of my speech, only 6% of the internet is the dark web, and only 4% is the World Wide Web. And the majority of that, the rest of that, 90% of that is the deep web. And the deep web isn't necessarily bad. Like I said, family members from countries who aren't allowed to use the internet, who can't have that access, use the deep web and the dark web, so their government can't trace them. They can't track that. And also, I guess, like the information that gets traded off from person to person happens through that as well. And of course, we can do that on like regular websites, but like I said, there's good and bad on every single website thing that we ever search up, on the clear net, the dark net, and the deep net. There's always a dark side to it. And I think what I'm really trying to say is that it's not as bad as everyone says it is. It's just a lot harder to access, and I think because it is a lot harder to access, people always assume that it's a lot worse. And like I said in, I think, the middle of the speech, the dark web isn't called dark because it's bad. It's because it's so hard. It's like really difficult to access. World Wide Web, that's the easiest we can ever access. And the deep web, that's just a little bit harder to access than the World Wide Web. But the dark web, you basically have to have like the skills, the training to be able to access that. And kind of sometimes you need like that mental stability to sit there and maybe accidentally come across certain things. Like, there are certain things that you look up on the regular internet and you're like, I shouldn't have clicked on that website, even if you had good intentions. And sometimes that just happens. And like on our regular website, we have incognito mode, but the government is still tracking that. It just doesn't show up on your history. But people are still watching, like that. The saying, like, there's an FBI agent watching you as we speak. They're watching me through my camera, and that's probably true. There's always somebody watching you, and that's kind of unsettling. But I think at some point the government has, like, not necessarily a right, because that is a kind of like invasion of your privacy. And I just think because like all of like the attacks we've been under, and I guess like the bad people we've witnessed in our lives, in our past, like in the past, like before I was born, and even afterwards, like exposing emails and I guess like trying to get someone to prove their citizenship of them being a United States citizen, and also like I don't know, like a bunch of like crazy stuff that happens, and it's just kind of, some things are a little unnecessary. Like I said, for like politics, like when people try to sit there and dig up like 10-year-old information on someone who actually has genuinely changed. They maybe have done something in the past that wasn't necessarily good, but they're older, they made a mistake, and they've learned from it, and they're trying to be better. I think sometimes if in the politics you can't really go off the bat like, I did this, I did a bad thing, and yeah, because that's not going to look good on you, and people might sit there and be like, well, he was honest from the start, but can we really trust him like a cheater? Not necessarily like a cheater on like a relationship, but a cheater in general. Like once a cheater, always a cheater, right? And I think we've all noticed that in the politics. And I think if anybody besides Miss Joy is going to be watching this, like we had said in one of our like squircles, I had said that we're all crooks. We truly are. We're all crooks. We all lie. We all have bad intentions, but we also have really good intentions too. Like sometimes we do things with the intentions of being good, but it end up being bad, unfortunately. And yeah, and that's pretty much all of my speech, is just explaining why the deep and dark web aren't as bad as the world makes it out to be. It's pretty much the same. It's just it has a lot more information that you can access. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't recommend it. I mean, I guess if someone is taking your identity, you can look up who it is. You can find out, or better yet, just go to the authorities and say, they're like, my identity has been stolen. I need it back. Please. Thank you. And maybe sometimes they don't do their job correctly or the right way. And if you have the ability to find out who it is and access that, I guess go ahead and do that, but kind of do that at your own risk. Don't bring other people into those situations, because that can actually, sometimes things like this can end up being a bad way. And unfortunately, that is true. Another person who had a very, very bad experience with the dark web, because like I said, in the dark web, that's where like the serious stuff takes place. It's not just drug dealings and assassinations. It's like some serious stuff. Like some people go in there to, I guess, do rituals and like not just like prayers and stuff, like some crazy stuff that you're like I guess a person like me, if I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a virus on my computer now. I just like, that's something like me I would think about for the rest of my life. And but that's the same thing with the website, like the Google. You can search up on YouTube certain things and they pop up, like, and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I just watch? uh, like everything has a dark side to it. Not just like, it's kind of like us. We, like, people, I think the majority of us have good intentions, but like I think every now and then we can come off as the bad guy. And a lot of times we might always be the bad guy to certain people or to a lot of people that we come in contact with. But I know that a lot of us are like, we only want to be good, we want to be viewed as good, and we and sometimes it just doesn't turn out that way. Your intentions are good, but they don't really work out the way that you had planned and hoped. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.